friends. Welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number 144. Today is Friday, February 7th, 2025. February. I just can't believe it. Anyway, I'm Emily Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and thanks so much for joining me. So the eagle-eyed among you may possibly notice that the shadows cast by the trees in the woods outside my house are going in a different direction. And yes, I am recording this in the morning, which is not my usual, but makes all the lighting different in here. I think I prefer afternoon for a lot of reasons, but I have something else going on this afternoon, which I'll probably tell you about later if I think of it. So therefore, I don't want to leave this to be recording in the afternoon or I won't get to it at all. Anyway, Flosstube is about cross-stitch mostly, and Variety Show is about something else, and we'll discover in a little while what that is. Oh, before I go farther, I may have a few new viewers. Jamie, Shelby, Rachel, welcome, if you've decided to tune in this time. So, cross-stitch. Let's talk about cross-stitch. I have been working on Margaret Hutton, Hands Across the Sea. This is not in general release yet, but I expect that it probably will be later this year. This is the sampler that Nicola Parkman used as her teaching piece and gave us in the Queen City Sampler Guild last year. And so I want to finish this. At least I realized I want to finish the specialty stitch part of it before May. So that means I have to work on the top half mostly. So I added a few more letters of the alphabet. There's some four-sided stitch letters, and there's some, this band right here. I mean, I imagine you cannot see it, maybe. But over on this side, where I started, I was using soie d'argent. This is Algerian eyelet over 2 threads as opposed to over 4 threads, which is what this is. And it's a over 2 threads band of Algerian eyelet to go all the way across. So Nicola was there and she said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I don't know that I think I may not like this Algerian eyelet over 2 threads with this particular weight of thread." And she said, "Well, why don't you try Smyrna crosses?" So I tried Smyrna crosses for a while. But I realized that I had a spool of the red 103 that was the same color, the equivalent color of red at home. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just wait and do that at home in Algerian eyelet. So that's what I did. I think maybe that's focusing. And I'm reasonably happy with that. I think it's flatter than Smyrna crosses. Smyrna crosses definitely produce a little bit of a pyramid shape. And even at this tiny thing, you get that idea. So I won't say it took a long time to do that, but it was more than one evening. And I did another couple of these curly Q letters, illuminated letters, I think. And this four-sided stitch, interestingly, the M is a different shade of red than the other reds that are in this top section. It's very similar, but perhaps you can just tell that it is. It's a little slightly bit more, has a little more blue in it. And by the way, sorry, there was a little bit of fuzz there. Anyway, this is that. Once I get done with the alphabets, the only other specialty stitches in here there's over 1 cross stitch in this section, the crowns and her name. There's queen stitch, a few queen stitch instances there on this plant, and these little doodads. And I think there's satin stitch somewhere. Perhaps not. Maybe that's all. So I do need to get down far enough to be able to position the queen stitch. Or maybe I could come up from the border actually and do these towers, because I want to be able to watch the little videos of Nicola's teaching in order to be sure I'm doing those stitches the way she taught us, or at least differ from that on purpose. So that is Margaret Hutton. The next thing, not the next thing I worked on, but the next thing I'll show you, this is Blackbird. It's called Blooming Sunflowers. And it's not very big. It's 71 by 66. I don't know if that's really a great picture of it, but it's from this book, Winds of Autumn. And I'm doing this on Blackbird Design Weekend, which is the first weekend of every month. And here's how far I got this past weekend. So those are acorns across the bottom, and it's, you know, typical Blackbird colors. I have some of the Weeks Dye Works, which is the called for, but I don't have it all. And if I have it, I'm rating it from whatever project it's in, because this is such a small project. It doesn't use much. I didn't want to go and buy, well, I couldn't even go because I have no local needlework shop. I didn't want to order the flosses for this, just to do this little piece. And so this is 36 count something by Tabby Cat. And last week, when I showed it to you in my plans, I wasn't sure what it was. I actually think it might be wood smoke, which was a fabric that we were given, but in today's light, it looks a little pinker than that. So I don't know what it is, but it's 36 count. This doesn't need much in the way of margins because you make it into a little bag, so you're sewing it. And therefore I have the other half of it to do something else, which I have another Blackbird project in mind. Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather. This is a painting by, it's funny that they don't give the painter. In my description field, I say who the painter is. 19th century, famous for marble. He was famous for being able to make his marble look realistic. And of course, original was in oils. I have been working in this area, the end of this marble lectern or whatever it is, mostly. I've tried to pick up the individual stitches that are still lacking in toward the edge of the full area that's done, but it's hard with the sun behind me. This is why I don't do this in the morning, because I want to get the gridding out back there, but there's still enough of those individual stitches that I just don't feel confident in taking the gridding out. So I've done 1,000 stitches since I last showed it to you, which was maybe middle of January, which means I think I have around 19,000 stitches to go. And my goal is to finish it this year. That's 2 threads, DMC, a lot of colors, a lot of single colors and a lot of blends. 2 threads over 1 Aida square, 18 count Aida. Full cross. I mean, a lot of people who do full coverage a lot do continental stitch or tench stitch. So they would use, instead of 2 threads, they might use 4 threads, but only go in one direction. And I don't like to do that because it creates a twist. It makes it unsquare. What is that term? It creates this tension toward the diagonal. And I don't like that. Doing full cross, this is going to come out square. And I like it to be square. This is Nancy Cook. I sort of doubt this sampler will ever be released because it's just such a weird little sampler. I'll call it quirky. This is a piece that we were given as a, sort of a fun pre-workshop piece for the Great British Sampler Weekend 2025, which has, I think, been rebranded to be called Mrs. Parkman's Academy of Needlework. But anyway, I'm working on it. So I've done the left half. It goes about here. It isn't quite, it's a little bit more than half of the top of the 3 lines of Rice Stitch Alphabet. I really have enjoyed this. So you see I've done through F here. So I just have a little bit more to go here. And then these lines of further dedication to her parents. Samuel and Laner Cook are the names of my honorable parents. It's just such a interesting little sampler. And the point of it for the event in England is it's stitched on 2 pieces of linen and then they were sewn together. Or maybe 2 pieces of linen were sewn together and then she stitched it. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. It's hard to tell from that picture. But I have already done the top half. I finished it last year, and so I'm working on the bottom half. Clearly, I mean, ideally, I would finish. This is so quick, I could finish it this week if I wanted to, which it's not that I don't want to, but it's a candidate actually to take on my trip. I'll have to think about that. And then the main thing that now these days I'm going to show, I think certainly every time I work on it, which is always, but I should work on it all the time, is Hannah Green 1826. There is a SAL going on called hashtag is Hannah Green 1826 SAL. And a lot of people are joining in on it. It's just so gratifying to see so many people working on this in the scheme that I laid out, which I'll stick a quick picture here of the scheme. But the point of the scheme is this. We started up here. We divided into 14 sections, leaving this over 1 section out for the moment. I'll give you just a quick explanation. 14 sections. You do this one, and then down here, this is February, what I'm working on. I'll show you in a minute. March is here, the house and another section of border. And then April will be a beginning of the vast lawn full of animals. And then May, come back up here and do 1 line. So do this little section, and then do 1 line of the over 1 verse. June, another line, July, and so on. And so these lines of verses and the little over 1 birds fit into the rest of the months. And then we end with this very heavy solid stitching down here. So it sort of breaks it up. It means you get to do some beautiful flower bouquets early. The border is beautiful. But every time you're doing border, which is possibly boring because you've already done it, you get to do something new on the side. Then you do 1/4 basically of the full coverage stitching early, and then you carry on and start doing the over 1, which some people find Some people don't like the full coverage stitching. Some people don't like the over one stitching. Some people don't like borders. It just breaks it all up. It mixes it up so that everyone can finish by March 1st, 2026. So that's the point. All of that talk, which if you've been watching my videos, you've heard all that before. Sorry. And so here's where I, whoops, upside down and the back of it. Here's where I am. So I've come down to do the February section below that flower basket. I accidentally, as you recall, started on the wrong direction of my fabric. Fortunately, I didn't have to do much frogging. I just rotated it. And that will mean when we get there that these stitches are crossed in the wrong direction. I'm not going to worry about it, but this is January's section finished. It wasn't quite finished when I showed you last week. And I have a word to say about the rice stitch base down here. This is rice stitch. I'll say something about that in a minute. Such beautiful colors. This viney thing has 4 colors in it. I think I didn't miss any of the little doodads. I think they're all there. I just cannot tell you how much I enjoy stitching on this. So, in the pattern, Nicola and her team are so great about their booklets. I mean, the pattern is so easy to read. I'm just going to flash this for you. So easy to read. Beautiful. It's full color. It has symbols. It's just great. And the typical way that rice stitch is depicted in a pattern, I don't really have anything blank to put over this. Perhaps I have a napkin. Okay, I'm going to do this. So the typical way is enclosed, each 2x2 stitch area is enclosed in a gray box. And then the instructions say, don't stitch the gray boxes. And so this pattern in this little section says, please note that the gray boxes are not to be stitched. They merely delineate the individual rice stitches. The rice stitches are worked in and then it gives the color. Well, and that is typical. That is how I've seen it in many patterns. Rice stitches are done that way. So this book does not have a diagram of how to do the rice stitch. I mean, I have looked through it. It doesn't have it in large. It doesn't have it in small. There's also satin stitch in this pattern, a tiny bit. The eyes of the peacock feathers down here. Oh, the peacocks are over here. The eyes of their feathers are satin stitch. And it says on the pattern, the eyes of the peacock's tails are worked in satin stitch using, and it gives the color. But it doesn't show a diagram of how you do satin stitch either. I know how to do rice stitch because I learned it actually in the Margaret Hutton workshop. And the Margaret Hutton book has a huge diagram of how to do rice stitch. This little Nancy Cook has a diagram of how to do rice stitch. So I'm going to just hold this up here in case you want to screenshot that. I hope it's in focus. But a better idea than this is from the Nancy Cook pattern, is there are 2 things on the internet that I wanted to mention that are fantastic resources for specialty stitches in cross stitch and other embroidery. The biggest one to mention is the Royal School of Needlework Stitch Bank. And I put a link. I don't put links in my description fields anymore. I put information in there, a lot of information, which hopefully you look at sometimes. But I don't put links very often because I got dinged by YouTube once because a link that I'd put into a quilt shop, their shop got hacked or their computers got messed up or something. And YouTube, in checking my links, said, you've put in a link that's dangerous. And so we're taking, I can't remember if they took my video down or they disabled my link or something. And they gave me a black mark for having put a dangerous link out. Well, I mean, it was the shop's problem. It wasn't my problem. But what I decided was I'm just not putting links anymore. I put enough information so that you can Google it and find it yourself, whatever it is that I might be talking about. But here I am going to put 2 links. One is to the Royal School of Needlework Stitch Bank, to this stitch, to the rice stitch. On that page, you'll find a diagram. You'll find photographs that show the different stages of creating the stitch. And I think there's a video that shows somebody stitching the stitch. And the rice stitch is just an example. I think they have hundreds of specialty embroidery stitches in the stitch bank. So it's a very good resource. It's interesting to browse through it. You just randomly click on things, even if you aren't looking for something specific. But it's just interesting. And you'll find it when you go there that there are 3 rice stitches listed. One of them is this one, which actually comes from counted canvas, needlepoint type stitching. That's where it originated. Another free embroidery stitch is the rice stitch, which is just individual stitches sort of randomly placed, not counted, but placed on your embroidery fabric. And you'll see a couple of examples of that on this page. But the one that is needed for this chart is the one from Counted Canvas. So I'm putting a link there. I'm also putting a link to the video that Nicola Parkman did on that little ABC sampler, which I have here. I haven't worked on it in a while, where it was a group of specialty stitches that she gave a little video tutorial free. The chart is free, and all the videos are available on her YouTube channel. Completely free instruction on how to do not only the specific stitches in that little sampler, but related stitches in some cases. And one of the things she covers is the rice stitch. And so I gave you the link to the video and the timestamp at about 25 minutes and 59 seconds. She starts illustrating the rice stitch. So those are the best places I can possibly imagine that you can get instruction on doing the rice stitch for this sampler. She also does, I think, cover satin stitch in the in those videos. I think she does. I can't remember though. She might not cover satin stitch, but the Royal Society of Needlework definitely does. So I'm sorry the light is so weird. That may not show up at all. It's just a texture. This is 36 count, just the ticket by Tabby Cat, which is the called for fabric, and I'm using the DMCs. I could not be happier. So that, I think, covers my cross stitch. I'm looking at my, I always create my description field, almost always, before I actually record the video. So I'm just looking over to see what else there was there. Okay, that's it for that variety show. First of all, have I? Yes, I did. Okay, variety show. There's so many things I could tell you about. First of all, I'll tell you what I'm doing this afternoon, why I'm recording now and not this afternoon. And the sunlight has just changed again. Sorry. This afternoon, Cindy, my quilting friend, is coming over, and we are going to jettison some things from my sewing room. Fabric, mainly. Because I realize I'm paralyzed in creating new projects, getting started on new projects, because I have fabric that I feel as if I should use, but I don't have a plan for. And it's not fabric I bought within the past couple of years. It's fabric which is from the 90s or earlier. And I just need to probably, my guess is that there's certain sections of where I store things in the sewing room that are mostly this older fabric. And I would guess in those sections, probably 90% of it is going to go. Well, maybe 80%. And 20% I'll hold on to. One of my things that just makes me uneasy about getting rid of it is, frankly, finishing little pillows, cross-stitch pillows, to find a piece of fabric which is in keeping with the pillow, the design of the stitching. But I don't need to keep as much as I have. And that is just sort of older fabric that I think I need to get rid of. There's another category, which is, well, I'll call it leftover fabric, leftover from projects. And what I've been doing recently is I've been cutting leftover fabric into 3 shapes. I think only 3. I think I've limited myself. 2.5-inch strips if I get most of a width of fabric. 2.5-inch strips. That's what makes up a jelly roll. There are a lot of patterns that use 2.5-inch strips. They're very easy to incorporate into things. 2.5-inch squares for pieces that I can't make a strip out of, and 5-inch squares. And again, there are a lot of patterns that are based on 5-inch squares right now, because that's one of the pre-cuts that's easily purchased. So I'm just doing that. I'm cutting fabric into those sizes. And I'm cutting some fabric that probably in today's purge would have been thrown away. But I've already cut it. It's in my little box. So I'm not gonna go through those squares and pitch them. I'll maybe pitch them later, or maybe not. So some of it I will do that. I'll set it aside in a stack that, 20 minutes every time I go up to the sewing room, I'm gonna cut some of these standard sizes out of this and pitch the rest. And when I say pitch, I mean some of it's gonna go to the thrift shop, and some is gonna go to some children I know who like to glue it onto things as part of their craft activities. So leftover fabric, some of it is just scraps. It really is fabric too small to keep. So I don't know what will end up happening, but that's what's happening this afternoon. The other thing I wanted to talk about, our book club this year, we always read a classic. One classic a year. We try to do that. This year's classic is Count of Monte Cristo. I suggested it. I now wonder what was I smoking when I suggested that. It is a very long, complicated book. I have read it. We're reading it in a particular unabridged edition, although I think some people are reading it in a different unabridged edition. And that actually makes sense for that book, because during his life, the author's lifetime, Dumas's lifetime, it had more than one edition. So, but it's a book that probably deserves to be abridged in a way, because it's pretty long and complicated. But obviously, the way to get at a long, complicated book is to use something like Cliff's Notes or Spark Notes. some of that information is available online. Wikipedia is another way to get at one of those longer or complicated books. There's usually an article about these classic novels that includes a plot summary, a character list, that sort of helpful information, even themes, sort of the kinds of information that you would encounter in Cliff Notes or Spark Notes. And Spark Notes, for sure, are available on the internet, I think for free. And Cliff's Notes probably are as well. But there's another way to get at these pieces of literature, and that is some authors have written some. You can buy books which are fun summaries of books or poems. And these two I happen to own. How to Become Ridiculously Well Read in One Evening. So this is a compilation compiled and edited by E.O. Parrott, Parrott. And I'll put this is in the description field too, the title and author of this. And this is, 150 or so works of literature that have famous people or editor type people who have written a fun or something synopsis. I mean, like here is Oliver Twist, that little set of 3-line verses. Here's one that is by The Cherry Orchard by Anton Chekhov, is a series of letters. So, it's interesting, creative ways of summarizing, giving a synopsis in a way of great literature. This, I'm sure, is out of print. This book, it's a Penguin book. When I open it, it cracks. It has yellowed pages. It is not acid-free. Shrinklets. Now, this is by just one person, by Morris Sagoff. And he himself, this is not a compilation of other people's writings, so you have to, if you like his style, you'll like this book. And it also includes illustrations I just came across. Well, here's Don Quixote in City Hall behind him. Oh, this is Sancho Panza, of course, and Don Quixote is facing City Hall. But, so some of it is, you have to like his style, which maybe you would or maybe you wouldn't. But this is, for instance, the illustration for Cyrano de Bergerac. I think that's really funny. So there's some clever things in here. I believe there are other books of synopses, and then there's also the series of books called Classics Illustrated, which were published in the 70s or so, maybe 60s, which are cartoon, that is comic book style versions of classic novels. And you can look up Classics Illustrated on the internet, and a lot of these are available for free. I think it's called archives.org or something. Might be the website where you find them. And I'll try to give enough information in the description field that you will be able to follow this if you want to. So anyway, I've been thinking about how am I going to read Count of Monte Cristo. I have until October. But time flies, as we have remarked. So I don't know. So I just thought I will start by looking it up in there. So a little bit of housekeeping. I will not be making a video next week. I will be in Canada, in Ottawa, visiting Anne. I don't know if I'm taking cross stitch with me. I probably will take cross stitch with me. Whether I work on it is a whole other question. It's probably going to be cold. I hope it's going to be cold because we're going up for Winterlude. I'm going up to experience Winterlude, which I've been up there for 2 or 3 other times in February. It's their winter carnival thing, a celebration. They have ice carvings and snow carvings, and the canal, the Rideau Canal that goes through the city, they always, every year, they lower the water level in the canal and it freezes into an ice rink. And I believe it is the longest ice skating rink in North America. The longest, I was going to say natural ice skating rink. Well, I can't imagine you would create a 7-kilometer long ice skating rink. It might even be more than 7. I'll know more statistics next week. I will have looked it up. But anyway, so we're going to be there and, enjoy the city and play games and eat good food as we always do. So I may take cross stitch up there with me. I may take knitting. I may take some of each. But I might not work on it because that's how it goes. So I think that I have spoken of everything I wanted to. No video next week. I will be back the following week, Lord willing. And I hope you have a great couple weeks stitching or enjoying the spring weather if you have spring weather. I realize it's February. It's winter everywhere. We did have 74 degrees the other day. Yeah, it's crazy. I think at the same time that some friends of mine got 6 inches of snow, same day. Anyway, thanks for watching, and many blessings to you, friends.